has been a pleasure to co-organize the Voices of Partition panel with Mr. Bajaj and India Community Center in Cupertino. On behalf of the 1947 Partition Archive, I would like to especially thank our witness panelists, Mr. Ali Shan, Dr. Ismat Kamal, Mr. Zafar Afaq Ansari, Mrs. Raj Jaggi, Dr. Vishen Jotwani, and Dr. Juneja. We are very honored to have all of you here today, and we look forward to hearing and learning from your stories. I would also like to thank my team members in the archive for their involvement and contributions towards making this panel happen. I remember first learning about partition not in history books, but from my maternal grandmother. I grew up listening to my grandmother ritualistically recounting her loss of home and community in Dhaka and arriving in Calcutta with her recently widowed mother and 2 younger siblings on the eve of partition. Later, when I did read about partition in high school history books, it was a very different account. The focus of those history books was on the grand political events that led to and followed partition, and not on the everyday lived memories of ordinary civilians. And this is where the work of the 1947 Partition Archive becomes significant. The mission of the 1947 Partition Archive is to create a people's history of partition by enabling the witness voice. The archive, based in Berkeley, California, connects with partition witnesses all over the world and records their stories via the powerful medium of video interviews. The founder and executive director of the 1947 Partition Archive, Dr. Vinita Singh Phalla, comes from a family of partition migrants and was inspired to initiate the archive after visiting the oral testimony archives at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial in Japan. She began interviewing partition witnesses in 2009. In 2011, the 1947 Partition Archive was born. The archive is dedicated to collecting and preserving eyewitness accounts of partition and bringing knowledge of partition into widespread public consciousness so that we don't lose this important chapter in history. The archive provides a people-powered global platform for fellow citizens all over the world to collect oral histories that document not only partition, but pre-partition life and culture, as well as post-partition migrations and life changes. To this end, the archive offers free oral history workshops every month in order to train and engage citizen historians from all over the world with the common goal of documenting partition oral histories. The archive launched a Story Scholar program in India last fall and is pleased to announce the second cycle of the Story Scholar program. And is pleased to announce that the second cycle of the Story Scholar program will begin in South Asia next month. Since the first oral history interviews were conducted in 2009, the archive has been honored to record and preserve the stories of thousands of partition witnesses from all religious, ethnic, and economic communities in the South Asian subcontinent and South Asian diasporic communities throughout the world. The recorded stories are being made available in limited capacity via YouTube and an interactive online story map on the archive's website. In the future, the full stories will be made available for educational purposes to academic researchers, students, and the public. In order to bring global attention to partition so that we can learn from it in the future, I urge you to share your story. Sign up to have your story recorded by the archive and donate. There are sign-up sheets on the table over there. Those of you who are interested in having your stories recorded and heard by the public at large, please feel free to sign up with us over there. Chris will help you. There is Chris. He will help you sign up. Together, we can continue to preserve this important history and build the 1947 Partition Archive. Thank you.
And now, we have 5 individuals who have already been interviewed by the archive here today who will be sharing their story. Once again, I would like to give everyone a friendly reminder that it is important for us, all of us, to be mindful that we are here to listen to everyone's personal experiences and not share political opinions. We have panelists from diverse places from all over South Asia, and this room is a safe space for them to share their life experiences. Let us keep that in our minds and our hearts as we learn from what the panelists have to say. And without further ado, let us begin the story-sharing panel with the archive interviewees. Our first panelist, Dr. Ismat Kamal, was 10 years old during partition. He migrated from Lahore to Amritsar and was interviewed by Sabine Sheikh. Thank you, Mr. Kamal, for being here today and sharing your story with us.
Because I was surprised to be on the panel because I was in a part of India which was peaceful and remained peaceful throughout my stay there except for one day of rioting. So when she said that I migrated from Lahore to Amritsar, I think there's a mistake somewhere. I did not, so I will keep myself short accordingly. And I was, that's okay.
You can keep going.
I will keep going, don't worry. I just wanted to convey that to everybody. So I was 10 years old, I was a sensitive child, and I used to keep a diary even in those days. So, and I still have those diaries, by the way. So it's also a record of what happened, what was going through my mind as a child. And Lucknow, as I said, was a peaceful city. There was only one day of rioting, which I remembered, and that happened in 1951, when there was an attack on a mosque and 1 or 2 people died. But apart from that, we used to live as a very friendly and close community, you know. And Lucknow was a strong place for Shia Muslims, and we were Sunnis, and there were, of course, Hindus and Christians, but it was just like a very closely knit together. We were friends, you know. We did not feel any effect of the partition. It came to us gradually. Of course, there were a lot of people who migrated from Pakistan. So I was spared the trauma which some of the panelists here and I think members of the audience would have gone through. But the partition came to us in 2 stages. The first was 1947, when it actually occurred and when we just saw and observed things from a distance or heard about from a distance. And one of my father's closest friends was Shafi Ahmad Kidwai, who was the brother of Rafi Ahmad Kidwai, who was a minister of the government later on. So he was murdered in Dehradun, which had an effect on the whole family. And incidents like that, what was going on, of course, we had to be alive to the situation. That was a period of fear and anxiety. But apart from that, we were not directly affected. We went right through it. And the second stage came in 1957 when my father decided to migrate to Pakistan. And that's when we felt the pangs. Leaving our childhood friends. And I should be not emotional because I just heard what my sister has to say, and she'll be one of the speakers. And so I only remember one thing. When my father went to say goodbye to his dear friend, his name was Thakur Baz Bahadur Singh. He said, of course, Charan Chune mein, I've come to touch your feet. And the Thakur Sahib had his whole folded in the namaste mode, and he just couldn't say a word. He just kept shaking his head again and again. So that was an emotional moment for me to witness. And then, after that, of course, we took the train to Lahore, and via Amritsar, and then we came to Karachi. But I was deeply affected by it. I have read a lot, and I have heard a lot, and I have my views, but of course, this is not the forum to share those views. But that was all I felt about partition. When we reached Karachi, it was a strange place. the scene was very different. It was in the middle of a desert. Now, of course, there is some greenery because whereas Lucknow was a city of parks, it was a beautiful city. And it has changed now. And I think that has come more from the general population explosion than any other thing. So I went back in 1999. My school, Loreto Convent School, where I got my primary education, and my school where I went to for my senior Cambridge and intermediate science, which was La Martiniere College. They are still the same. I was glad to see that. And still preserved, still very good schools. So I was happy to see that. And apart from that, when we reached Pakistan, it was new. And the people who have migrated from India are still treated as, they're called Muhajirs. So they are like, well, I don't know, but at least they are all living okay, and it's one country there. But apart from that, I don't have any experiences of Pakistan, of partition. So I will just finish at this point and pass on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Kamal. I apologize for the mistake.
Thanks for being emotional.
No, not a problem. Our next speaker is Mrs. Raj Jaggi. I don't want to make another mistake, so I'll ask Mrs. Jaggi to share what age she was during partition and from what city to what city she migrated, and then share the rest of what she has to say. She was interviewed by citizen historian Reena Kapoor. Thank you, Mrs. Jaggi, for being here today and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I was interviewed by Reena Kapoor, and my interview is on the Facebook itself. So I will be also very brief. I was 15 years old when the partition happened, and I just took exam for the matriculation at that time. It used to be like in June, July, so on 15 August the partition happened. My family, I was born in Lahore, but we used to live in Gujranwala, and my father was working in Kashmir government. So he wanted to settle down after retirement in Jammu. But the partition happened, and me and my sister, my two brothers, one was studying civil engineering in Lucknow, and the other was studying BSc in Lahore. And we were in Gujranwala, but because of the vacations, my sister had gone to my eldest sister who lived in Sialkot. So she got sick, me and my mother went there. And on the 14th of August, the independence was declared. In the middle of the night, we could heard on the radio Pandit Nehru's voice. I have forgotten the sentence, whatever he was speaking, and there were, Jaise kehte naare lagne shuru ho gaye, Allahu Akbar. Nobody could imagine that this thing will happen. It happened all of a sudden. People were caught, surprised. So we were moved to a refugee camp just on the border of Jammu and Punjab. So the whole, like Sialkot, the people who stayed there, certain people left from there. Then we were moved to a refugee camp. The whole Sialkot town was in the camp. Even if a dog barked, the whole camp would sit down and they would say, "Aa gaye," just like that. Then they moved us to Jammu. I had my father's cousin sister lived there, so we never knew that my father and eldest, I had three brothers. Eldest brother, they moved out of Gujranwala and they tried to go to Jammu. So when we reached Jammu, my Bua said, the family of my brother has come who is no more. And we were like caught, surprised. My younger sister was 3 years younger than me. So, as you know, the mothers at that time were just simple women. They never got out of the house. My mom especially just went to Gurudwara and home. She never ventured out and didn't have any friends. So then after that, all of a sudden, Pakistan attacked Jammu and Kashmir, and the whole refugee people came out of Jammu, and there was an airport, जिसको कहते हैं खुला मैदान बिल्कुल. Everybody was sitting under the the sky. We used to sleep there, whatever. We had nothing, like 4 clothes. I don't know how at that time my mom got few jewelry with her. So she was keeping that jewelry very safe. Then they evacuated the whole population from there to Pathankot. The army was taking army to the border, and the vehicles which were going empty to get army people, they took everybody like, it's like a line, they were taking people to Pathankot. So they dumped us in Pathankot. From there I don't remember how long we were stranded there. Then they, jisko kehte hain na, bari bari with your turn, they will, you have seen the scenes, people sitting in the trains, on the roofs of the train, and from there, I don't remember how we boarded the train, because one of my mom's sister was in Delhi. So that train went to Delhi. My 2 brothers who knew that they never knew that they were killed. Someone saw him on the station, and after that there were riots and killings. So we thought they will come back. I asked my brother when, after some time, I said, how could you locate us on the station? He said that one brother used to go to the airport and one on the station, and we used to call your names. Raj, Sudesh, Raj, Sudesh. How that part I just forgot. From there we came to my mother's sister home. She had quite a big home, so all the family, like my mamas, my masis, and we stayed there in their house for 3 years. So eventually we never got a compensation from the government. So my brothers got employed. At the age of 16, I also started working. The government was very, you can say, kind. They gave us jobs. So after that, gradually, we settled down. We used to listen to the radio so that we can know the names of the people who are okay or passed away, but we never knew. My father never came back. My eldest brother never came back. And it was a big trauma. Like him, he became emotional. I never want to repeat these things, because we can never ever, till I go to my last rites, I cannot forget. I cannot. So it was unexpected. It's okay. Gradually we have moved on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Jaggi, for sharing your story with us. Next, we have Mr. Zafar Afaq Ansari. You saw him on the video that we presented as well. Mr. Ansari, if you could share with us how old you were at the time of partition, and from what city to what city you migrated, and then share your story, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm Zafar Ansari.
then my father moved to Delhi, where I started my education. Due to many movements, I was rather behind in my education. So 1947 saw me in Pehli Kachi. If those of you remember that there used to be Kachi and Pakki classes. So I was in Pehli Kachi and studying in Daryaganj Vernacular School. Life seemed to be stable, and for a limited view of a 9-year-old, it looked quite amusing and happy because there were other brothers and sisters and playmates and kind people around. So things seemed to be perfect. But then we were told that we are going to move out of Delhi, which is still in my memories as a city of fantasies. I don't think I've seen any city so beautiful and so inspiring, because I saw Delhi with the colored glasses of the childhood. So I don't think there will be any city like this. Okay, we moved, there were 11 peoples together that we moved. And the journey started on 11th August and ended in the evening of 13th August in Karachi. This was before that, the train that moved on 10th August was waylaid and completely cut off. And we didn't know, so we still decided to move on. It was a very long journey because the trains would inexplicably stop and we would wait. It was August, very hot, but we were told that we should shutter the train and sit on the floor, conserve on water, not drink too much. So after 48 hours or more than that, we reached Karachi on 13th of August. And we had immediately turned to a refugee camp, which was, of course, very poor substitute for the house that we lived in. But all the 11 people that boarded with us, they came without any loss of life, without any injury. What worried us most was my youngest sister, who was only a few months old. and we tried to keep water by sacrificing our own thirst, because my mother used to say that if she doesn't get water, she would not continue to live. So we wanted to see her live on. And it is a matter of great pleasure when I think that she is alive today and prospering with a lot of grandchildren of her own. So that is one of the things when I think about it, I thank God. After we reached Karachi, of course, we did not have any home, or other than have a job, and we did not know where to go. But by and large, we found a new life and lived on. When I was asked to come here today, I said, what, did I miss anything by moving, although I moved safely from Delhi to Karachi? Was there any loss? I think the greatest loss was my friends in the vernacular school. All of them were Hindus. We never know what sort of playmate a Hindu boy or girl would be. We looked, there were no one in Pakistan who was not a Muslim. So, a loss of heterogeneity, that was a problem. Go ahead.
You live.
Go ahead.
There is a problem with the microphone.
Okay.
Keep it here.
So, one thing that I missed when I left India was that from the biggest community of India, I lost all contact. And for the next many, many years, what I learned about them and the opinions that I formed about them were totally biased. I had no way of finding out the first hand what sort of people Hindus and Sikhs were. This I think was a great loss. They speak of Iron Curtain. An Iron Curtain was installed between India and Pakistan. And at the same time, the Iron Curtain was installed in the minds of people. Only selected information would pass from there. This is, I think, was a great loss and probably the cause of many problems that we face. It seems that what needs to be done is try to forgive not forget, but forgive people, unknown people, whom we despised, disliked, were unfriendly with, merely because they were born in a different environment. This is, I think, the step that we should take, and by developing this people's history, this is one thing that we can do, bring greater understanding and reduce the hatred. Thank you very much.
92, at that time of partition, I was 25 and a half. I just graduated in medicine, and but I was quite conversant with Lahore and Delhi. I used to come to Lahore and Delhi every year for vacation, as one of my brother-in-law was in the railway in Lahore, and Delhi elder brother-in-law was in CPWD. So, anyway, when I came back after the examinations in Bombay to my hometown is Rohri Sakha, that is on the Indus River, just north of Sindh. That is the biggest junction between Lahore and Karachi, in between. So, when I came, my father was seriously ill, and I took him immediately to Lahore Gangaram Hospital. That was in December, end of the December 46. But he died in 47. I kept the ashes there in Lahore cremation ground, and then went to my hometown to do all the ceremonies. And also we had a lot of land and all that to crafts, arrange something. But anyway, after doing all these things, everything was in the air that partition is coming. There were a lot of rumors. There was no such thing as TV and all those things. Even the telephone was not there. So, only thing was personally you go and find out what is the thing. So I didn't bother even to save the things at that time. I'm talking of January or February. So I say everything will be calmed down. I've never heard that type of a Holocaust, such a Holocaust in this. So when, after doing everything, after a few months in June, July, I went to Lahore to pick up the ashes to be put in Hardwar. But at that time, Lahore was absolutely peaceful. I stayed there for a few weeks with my nephew, my sister's son, he was working there. And also my uncle's family. Uncle means my mother's brothers. So I was quite comfortable, excepting that in old Lahore, it was burning. It had nothing to do with Hindu-Muslim. It was two Muslim parties. That's Sir Feroz Khan Noon. He was another party was Muslim League. So they were fighting and burning. Anyway, with the help of one Tangawala, I went through that fire, picked up the ashes, brought it, and then you'll be surprised. Anarkali, Ramkali, and all these places were so peaceful. But there was a little underneath chaos or something. I went in, purchased the new suits in Anarkali, which they were on sale. I was so sure everything will be normal. Then I took the ashes to Hardwar. From Hardwar I went to Mussoorie, stayed there for some time with my cousin. Then came to Delhi to attend the 15th August celebration. I watched the procession at the India Gate. So it was not that crowded. So I remember very well, very near the coach. It was Mountbatten, Nehru and Mrs. Mountbatten were there. And so I stayed on for a few days. Till then, I didn't find anything wrong. I was traveling by train. I was suddenly after 47, that is 15th August, suddenly something happened, I don't know. I was staying with my sister in Naya Bazar, Road Delhi. Suddenly there was rumors that the massacre has taken place, this and that. Nehru himself in the jeep with the loudspeaker started requesting the people, which I could hear because our house was in, that please calm down, nothing will happen, nothing. Patel also came next day, but for a few days we were inside the house, nothing could be done. In the meantime, we did not know what is happening to my nephew or my uncle's family. It was, we were not in touch, everything was disrupted. Anyway, we used to go to the airport. My brother-in-law was going to the airport, and another brother-in-law was going to the railway station. Suddenly on airport was only 7, and the planes were only Dakotas, 26. So anyway, suddenly one stranger was coming from the plane, and my nephew, sister's son, was practically of my age, and with whom I was staying only 1 month before. He was stabbed 13 times, and he was lying on the road. At that time, both armies were patrolling Lahore. From Indian side, the Gurkha troops, and on the Muslim side also, Pakistan side. Luckily, Gurkha troops saw him. He picked him up and took him to Gangaram Hospital, where he was given. The other friend of his, he was killed, he died. So when he, somehow there are some friends in Lahore, sent him by air to Delhi. And I was surprised. If you can imagine those days of not antibiotics, the wounds had become septic. He was in a very bad condition. We took him to the hospital, anyway, survived. But what happened to my uncle's family, we did not know. Suddenly, after a few days, from Lahore, one had family's boy, that my uncle's son, was 18, 19, Mohan. He survived, he came. He was completely frozen. He was not able to talk as if. What happened? They were leaving Lahore, went to the train, and at the Lahore station, they were all dragged out. And each and every member was butchered. This little boy, little means he was 18, 19, he fell down from the platform. You know, the platform is about 4 feet. He was watching his sisters, mother, brothers, everybody being butchered. That gave him such a shock. So when he came to Delhi, he gave all support and he got support, but that trauma, that depression, that was impossible even to think of. But these are the two tragedies that in our family we saw. And I was very much involved in it. But then I was thinking of going back to my house because my mother, everybody was there in Sindh. Lahore was cut off. I had to go from Delhi via Ajmer, Jodhpur, a long route. Anyway, I reached there. It was very difficult thing by that time. Lot of refugees from India, which you call them Mujahideens, they were coming and the trains were full. Luckily, our local Sindhi Muslims, they were very, very, very good. They never thought about it. They immediately, my farmers, other people came outside my house with a Quran in their hands. He said, nothing doing, you are not going. First we will get killed and then anybody can come to the house. I remember my farmers and my other people, they came. I said, okay, but luckily my Jotwani family were quite well armed. decided to have a plane. We could get only one plane from Bombay. We chartered a plane, Dakota 21, seat only. And in our town, there was a small landing ground which Americans and English troops had made. Got them clean, and we got the plane. We sent our family and children. Family, women and children. So that is, they went to Bombay, and of course, my brother was already settled in Nagpur. He was in a good condition, so he received everybody. But then I was left, and then my sister, children, my another cousin who lost her husband, his children, I had to escort them with great difficulty from Raleigh to Karachi. It is 12 hours journey. The journey was awful because every time you feel you might be killed or butchered. But you can imagine, we took the least of the luggage, reached Karachi, but how to go to Karachi? I mean from Karachi. No plane service was there. The train, there are only 2 trains left. Easiest was through Lahore, which was completely cut off, and there was through the Jodhpur. That was full. Then we got a cargo ship. I don't know who, government had arranged also, small cargo ships. We were dumped into the cargo ships. I got the accommodation. You can imagine a cargo ship having 1,000 passengers, no bathrooms, nothing else, only one bathroom. And from Karachi to Porbandar, it was practically took us 24. That's the worst journey in my life I ever seen. So there was hardly place to sit because we were all. Anyway, we reached Porbandar. From Porbandar we came to Rajkot to. That is the worst thing. And I was not alone. I had my sister, younger sister with her children, my another cousin, her children, and 1 or 2 other our family members. So, with great difficulty, we reached Bombay. From Bombay, of course, we went to near Nagpur, Gondia. My brother settled there in a very good position. So we tried to settle down. In the meantime, my brother also had arranged a lot of houses. So he did. But my brother did not allow me to sit even for a day. There were a lot of refugee camps were set up by the government of India. You know the refugee camps there were camps by the American and British forces when they were going to east side from Bombay and Karachi. So there were one in Gondia, Bla, the Barsi camp, Mana camp. I was immediately asked to take over Mana camp as a medical officer. There I saw the misery of the people. There were over 1,000 people. They were mostly Sindhis, but there were 400 families from Hyderabad. They were the victims of Razakars. So I had to look after them, and it was really, that is the place where I saw how the people have suffered. People living in those camps, one camp double the size of this hall. So many families were lying. And bathrooms were far away. No electricity. And whatever ration, I was in charge of the ration. So that was the thing. But one great thing happened. Within few months, 6 months, all the men folk said, we can't live on this empty ration. We cannot live. So they started going into the nearby villages. They tried to find out some work. I gave them little credit to Punjabis and Sindhis, how they, then in spite of all the loss, all the things, they rehabilitated themselves. I saw myself, tried to help them as much as possible, not financially, otherwise. So this is my story in a small way. But otherwise, personally, I can write a lot of things. Thank you very much.
not wish any child to go through what I went through. At the time of partition, we were in a village called Juneja, district Ludhiana, in Punjab. And we got there, my mother, my brother, and me were only 3 of us living there. With my other relatives, we moved there 2 years before the partition. And that was also a tragedy incident there. My father, he was born in Juneja. There were 4 brothers, and 2 of them were in farming situation, and the 2 brothers, my father and the older brother, were going to school. They finished their middle school from there, and they moved to Ludhiana and got into high school, graduated from there, and then they joined British police. So my father got promoted and transferred to Firozpur. And that's where he got married and settled. So I was born there, and with my other 4 siblings, and my 2 older sisters and my brother older than me were going to school there, and me and my younger sister were too young, and so we would stay at home. And one night, tragedy struck first time. There was an attempted robbery, and my father was killed because he fought back. So when my uncle from Ludhiana got the news, he came and took us all to Ludhiana. And there he called his other 2 brothers from village Juneja and discussed what to do with us. So they decided, my older sister, she was about 14, 15, to get married. And the other 2, my sisters, stayed in Ludhiana because there was no school, girls' school in the village. So we were moved, me, my mother and brother moved to Juneja. So that's where we were at the time of the partition. We stayed there, and we were getting our share of crops from our family land, which my uncle were managing. And we were sort of became normal, started normal life. My older brother went to middle school there, and I was in primary school first year. And then the partition happened. All of a sudden, the line was drawn in the middle of Punjab. West Punjab went to Pakistan, East Punjab stayed, gone with India. And we were in East Punjab, left there. And our village was 100% Muslim, small village, surrounded by Hindu and Sikh villages. But everybody was very nice. We used to intermingle with each other. There was no problem whatsoever. But after the partition, our elders from our village started feeling that what they should be doing now, because they had a fear. But they were still debating and deciding what to do, and all of a sudden one morning, my mother woke up to a noise, loud noises, and we woke up with her. She climbed upstairs on a flat roof to see what's going on, and me and my brother, we went up after her, and I still remember what I saw there. There was a lot of people, about hundreds of people surrounding the village, sword drums, spears, and it was early morning, sun was coming out. So all the armor was shining. We stood there, we didn't know what to do. My uncle came running and told us to come downstairs, down. So we came down, and he took us with him and followed him, and he took us in the center of the village where all the women and children were gathered. All the men told women and children to go into one large room in there and lock the door from inside. And then, I don't know what happened outside. It was for around about 2-3 hours. We were there. It was a hot day in I think, second week of August, the third week of August. And children were crying for water. Well, of course, there was no water there. And then it seemed like an eternity. So then there was knock at the door, and somebody shouted, "Open the door." Nobody would open the door. So then someone broke the roof from the top and put a gun through it and told everybody that if you won't open the door, you will be killed and we will set the room on fire. So someone in the room said, let's open the door because if we're going to be killed, it's the way it is. So somebody opened the door. I'm sorry. So one gunman was standing at the door and he was killing all the male children or men who were there and let the women and children girls go through. And when my mother saw that, she found a sheet, white sheet, and tore it into two halves. And wrapped around me and my brother. She took both us in her arms and she walked through. Luckily, the gunman didn't notice that we were girls or boys. So they were taking all of us just outside the village, and there was a big tree where they asked us to sit. After everybody, all the women and children got there, then they separated some girls away, and then they told women to take the jewelry, give the jewelry to them. And some women couldn't take the jewelry out of their ears fast enough, so they were snatched off them. And then the killing started. My two aunties, I was standing, they were sitting beside me, and one person with the axe chopped their head off. And the gunman was shooting also. Then my brother saw that and started running. One person came with a spear and hit him and he fell. My mother, she ran after him and fell over him. And she was killed there. I was very traumatized. I stood there without any fear, looking at the bodies and injured crying for help. Of course, there was no help, and all the village on fire. Then all of a sudden, it was like lightning. Fear went through my body. And I started running. When I was running, one guy with a spear came to hit me, and I bumped into the other person who was killing also. He had my arm. When the other guy tried to kill me, he said, "Don't kill him, or he will take me with him." So when the killing stopped, he took me and we started walking away from the village. We walked one night and 2 days, I think, and every time along the way, when lunch or dinner time, he will hide me in the sugar field and go to the nearby village and get a food and we will eat. So after 2 days, we went to another village where he went to one house and introduced me to them and left me there. I never saw him again. So that family was quite nice. They treated me nicely. They didn't tell anybody in the village that I was Muslim because fear of that somebody may kill me. I started living there. They took me to Gurdwara, converted me to Sikhism, and then I was going out with the family to their farmland and work whichever way I could. And I was still there when Gandhi was killed because there was a lot of talk about him in the family and his name was mentioned a few times, that's why I remember that. And I started that new life. In the meantime, my two uncles from the village were alive, and they came and saw all the bodies. And there was my two young cousins, boy and girl, injured. They picked them up, and they couldn't find me. So they knew that I was alive somewhere. So they took the train and got to Ludhiana with my other uncle who was there and my sisters. And they all boarded the train from there somehow and got to Pakistan, which I didn't know at that time. And then there was a military agreement between India and Pakistan that there will be some military soldier from each country would go to both sides of the border and recover all the children or women or anyone who were left there respectively. So, soldier from Pakistan which came to Ludhiana, one of my father's cousin was in that group. So my uncle, my father's older brother wrote him about me that they couldn't find him, so he must be alive somewhere, so look for him. Somehow, with the family I was living with, the older son, he was about 15-year-old, he had a friend, so he told him about me. Somehow they had an argument with each other or something, so that his friend went to the military in Ludhiana and told them about me. So the soldiers came in the evening and knocked the door, and they went in and asked them, where's the Muslim boy? So I stood up, and they wanted to take me with them, but I was still traumatized that I didn't want to go. So I started crying. And my cousin uncle, he took me on one side and he told me our family names and told me that he used to come to our village and the gramophone and we used to listen to some music. So this sort of thing, when he told me, I was not that much scared then, and I was ready to go with them. So they took me from there, brought me to Ludhiana, and there he kept me for 2 weeks there, and when there are other women and children recovered, and there was about 1 or 2 buses full, They took us from there to Lahore in a refugee camp. So I was there, and then in the refugee camp I was looking around for my family member. I couldn't find any. I was resigned to my fate, but I was there. So then there used to be every day in the morning, they would announce everybody's name, and whoever outside of the refugee camp knew their relative, so they will note down the number of their name and number of their relative, and after the announcement, they will go into the refugee camp, into the office, and ask for their relatives and pick them up. So my uncle, my mother's brother, was living only 35 miles in Kasur. That's about a town. So he found me, so he took me in his house. But they didn't know, and they didn't have any concept of counseling. They didn't give me hugs or love, what I needed most. And surety that I will be safe. Although I was living in their house, they were nice, everything was wonderful, but that problem was there. I used to cry at night. I was feeling lonely. And they put me into school with their own children. I was used to go to school. 6 years passed. I was 12-year-old when miracle happened. I used to go to mosque for prayer, especially in the month of Ramadan, fasting month. There were some young teenagers, about 15, 16, 17-year-olds. They are sitting in one corner at the 4 o'clock prayer and then stayed until evening prayer. So I used to sit there, but I was very quiet, shy, and not enjoying the laughs and jokes, what they were talking about and saying. So one of them noticed that I was 12-year-old, I was very sad looking, a child. So he went and told one of his friends who was running his own family business that about me, and his friend came and sat beside me next day and asked me who I was. I told him that my parents were killed in a partition, and I was living with my uncle. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, never mind, we are the same boat. He said his father died when he was young. So he knew my feelings. And that time, my lifelong friendship started with him. And he became my guardian angel, my mentor, and my big brother. He was about 8 years older than me. After about 2 weeks, he introduced me to his friends, and I joined them. And then he sat me down one day alone, and he told me, look, you got to forget the past, because you cannot dwell in the past if you want to move forward. And to move forward, you have to forgive those people who killed your family. And he will be with me, supporting me, whichever way I can. So I felt belonging to somebody. I changed. I was a different person then. I started living. I finished my high school education there in Kasur, and then he told me what to do next. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what to do next. He said, you cannot just start any job or anything, because all you will get a clerical job, it's not good enough to raise a family. So he said, you need to go to college. And financially, I was okay because my father, before he died, he had a bank account and he had 25,000 rupees in bank. So after the partition, that money was transferred to Pakistan. So financially, I was okay, and morally, he was supporting me. So that was okay. So he took me with him to Lahore, and I got admission in college. After graduated from college, I got a bachelor degree, and in the meantime, my sister and my brother-in-law moved to England. So they asked me to come over. So I went to England, and there I went to Glasgow for 6 years, and then to London. And I was kind of adventurous as well, same time. So when I got time to get married, so me and my sister and my brother-in-law decided to go by road from London to Lahore. So we drove all the way to Lahore, got married, came back with my wife. My 2 children were born in London, so then we moved to Southampton, port city of England, and there we stayed 15 years. I had a business, clothing business, ready-made children and ladies' clothes. There, I stayed there for 15 years. And from there, I came on a visit here in Bay Area. I love the place. I love the diversity here. And then I moved here in 1985. And then my 3 children and my wife came in 1 year after me. So I have got a gas station business where I'm still working. I am a very open-minded person. I have Hindus, Sikh, Christian friends. I will not hesitate to go to mandir, to Gurdwara or church. I love to know about other religions and culture and traditions. So my life became kind of complete. So I'm at peace within myself. But that wasn't the only incident where I survived. I have near-death experience few more. In 1993, at my gas station, there was a robbery attempt, and I fought back as well. In the struggle, he shot me 5 times, but he missed. At the end, he shot himself. So that was one other, I survived that one. Then I was living in a 2-story house, and I was on the top of the roof doing something, and I fell on the concrete. I got up. My wife asked me if I want an ambulance. I said, no, I drive myself to the hospital. I went myself to the hospital. All I had was 3 ribs broken. So I want to tell you these things because, you know, I have a positive attitude to life, and that keeps me going. Then in 2012, I had a cancer. Kidney cancer. It was found early, and they took my kidney out. I went back to normal. I'm a hiker. I started hiking when I was 60-year-old. I went to do Half Dome Yosemite 3 times. Whitney, which is the highest mountain around this area in Sierras. I hiked that one. And I hiked all around here in Bay Area, about 100-mile radius, which keep me going as well. Give me strength. I love nature. I love outdoors. So after a year my kidney cancer came back again on my clavicle joint. I had a lump there. I went to my Dr. Sai. He is a wonderful doctor. He sent me straight away for biopsy. And they found kidney cancer came back on my clavicle joint. So I went to radiation, and the cancer went to remission. And then I still kept going. So then last January, I had a heart attack. My wife took me to ER. They tried to revive my heart because I had 28 beats, which was way down. So they only got up to 35 beats, and they won't go more than that. So then they took me to ICU, and there they found out I need a pacemaker. So I got a pacemaker. I'm still fine. I'm on my feet. I still do what I'm doing. I do hikes, although I don't do any stenocyte, but I still hiking, and I still go to work. So it's like a Shakespeare's drama that if it all's well, it ends well. So that's where I am right now. I have 3 wonderful children, 9 grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter is here. And she wanted to come, and this is the first time she heard my story. I haven't told my wife or my children, it was too painful. So my children lived around Fremont, and I enjoy them and enjoy my grandchildren, and life is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the other panelists who volunteered their time to come here and to share their story with us. We're so honored to have had the opportunity to learn from your experiences and preserve your story in the archives so that future generations can continue to learn from your stories as well. To audience members, if you would like to share your story, we urge you to sign up to be interviewed at the table over there. And please do consider donating to the archive so that we can continue this great work, so that we can continue to preserve these great stories. A donation box is set up at the same table, and it is only with your support that we can continue with this work. Now we shall hear from Dr. Juneja, who is a close advisor to the archive and a mentor to one of our story scholars stationed in Gujarat. He was 6 years old when partition took place, and he'll tell you about his migration path and some reflections that he has on our work. Thank you, Dr. Juneja, for being here today.
Maybe I'll stand up and talk to you. I'm not going to be emotional, be assured, because I think I'm old enough and have seen enough, suffered enough to come to this stage of life. I was 6, born in mid-Ranja. If you are familiar with the story of Hiren Ranja, so mid-Ranja, village of Ranja. The village was burnt in front of my eyes. My grandmother, who was the ruling person because I had lost my grandfather the day I was born. Same day. So an unfortunate, real unlucky child. Because if you're born on the day when you're... So, grandmother refused to believe that anything like this would ever happen. My father was educated, he was a surveyor, in the canal system. He would read the newspapers, tell everyone that it's going to be drastic, but she would not listen. So what he did was that he, along with his elder brother, they bought a ticket from Sargodha, flew to Delhi to see that when it happens, the family is safe. And perhaps that was the only cash they had at home. My grandfather owned 7 villages, but obviously no cash. So they came in advance. And then, after about 15 days or so, the village was burnt. We were made to go from village to first refugee camp in Sargodha, where we stayed, I don't know how long, for about 3 months or so. And one of my younger brothers was born there in that camp. So we named him Camp Raj. That's how the family named him. Staying there after about 3 months, there was no way how we are going to travel to India, because there was nothing being done there. One day what we found was that 2 army trucks came to take us to India. And we were loaded into that, started going slowly. It was raining very heavily, that I remember. I think it should be August. Very bad weather. And obviously on both the sides of the road, there were ambushed. At one place, the caravan of these 3 trucks stopped. 3 boys jumped out of the trucks to drink water, because they saw water there. They never came back. One of them was my elder brother. Anyway, the caravan went on. Usually, I don't know how much time it took, maybe a month or 2 months. Went and it dumped us on this side of River Ravi. Because the other side was locked, as he is telling you your story. Trains coming, being butchered, men were killed there. On bridge, the bridge was closed. After about a week or so, I did see, because we were on this side of the river, and I did see dead bodies floating in the river. I very vividly remember certain parts of that muddy place with blood. And then somehow, after a few days, we could cross the river and were dumped in the next camp, which was Amritsar. Maybe 4 months, 5 months, I don't remember. From there, we were dumped into Ambala camp. And from Ambala, we managed to go to be dumped in another camp, and that was in Gurgaon. This is how took us about 7 or 8 months. We lost touch with father, with his elder brother, and then all that I remember is that every evening there used to be announcements on the one radio with a big loudspeaker, and very clear, we'll all sit around and try to listen to the names of the people who were there. Some were missing, because the announcement was made. And then, as he rightly said, connections were established. So we thought we had lost our father, and the family was under the control of the grandmother.
But then miraculously one day we learned father was alive, we connected with him, and then father and uncle disappeared from the camp. We didn't know what they were doing. Later on we came to know the story. The story was that they were coolies, they were working as coolies on Delhi railway station, and when they were working there, two boys came there, two Muslim boys, and they said, "Do you recognize me?" He said, "No." "Okay, I am son of such and such Muzera." Muzera is, the person who works on the land. And Muslims were Muzeras in my village. The landowners were Hindus. So we are sons of Muzeras and we are going back to Pakistan. We are going back to Midrangja. Do you want to buy our business? So a deal was struck. My uncle and father, they went to Agra and they were the first Hindus to sell chrome leather. Leather of cows is chrome leather. They had no desire, wish to tell it to the grandmother, my grandmother, because this is something unacceptable. They went on working there for a few months, they made some money, and then the family went to Agra. Agra is where I was brought up. I don't have to tell you the rest of the story. But what I learned from this experience is that you are something and then you become absolutely nothing. And you live for about a year in camps. One camp, another camp. Go to schools which are no schools. And then bring up your life from the scratch. That's what my father did. But what I observed was something very great which I want to convey to you. Three kinds of reactions. Responses to this whole phenomenon. One was my grandmother's response. She would never compromise with the idea that her son sells cow's leather. So what she did, when I became a lecturer, after getting education, I went into teaching profession. And I became got as a lecturer. So by that time, you can imagine the time, it would be something like 15, 16 years in between. The struggle was going on and she was dying. And doctor had declared that she would die. So 3 times she died and again woke up. That is, doctor declared no more life and all that. And then she was waiting for me to come. So when I came with my first salary, some money in my pocket, my father called me, he said, "How much money you have?" I said, "I have about 290 rupees, because that was the salary that I got. So give it to me." So I gave it to him. He took the money, gave it to the grandmother. She grabbed it and died. The promise was that this money will be given to a Brahmin who will donate a black cow. This is one response to this whole phenomenon. Second response. This is what I observed as a child. My uncle, who was elder to me by about 10 years, he was also growing up in the same family, 21 people, in a house which was hardly 300 feet. And we used to take turns for everything, for sleeping, for going to, there was no latrine, of course. The house had no latrine, whatever it was. So, or for taking bath, which was outside, open bath, that kind of pump. Okay. So lived in that, and then second reaction was that this father, this grandfather, my uncle, who had just got about 8th standard education, he said, okay, I'm going to make money. So he extended the father's business from Agra to Calcutta, because Calcutta is where there are all the tanneries are there. So he established a tannery, and today also he's living, he's one of the richest persons in Calcutta. Made lots and lots and lots of money, but disconnected with the family. Because the family would always criticize him for one reason or another. And the third reaction that I saw was my father, who gave his business at the age of, I think, 45 or 50 to his son, and took to so much deep spiritualism, he lived up to 92, that he would get up exactly at 3 o'clock, pray, and would not talk to anyone. So these are the three responses that I saw to partition in my own life, and I think that summarizes all that you have seen here. And I would like to particularly thank this group, young group, who are doing wonderful work, for the simple reason that on India's 50th independence day, somebody came to me from Times of India to interview me. I was professor and head department of English, Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda. So he thought that I would be a fit person. So he talked to me, and first question that I asked him, that how is it that after 50 years you come to find out a person? You never thought that this was such an important event? Of course, the poor fellow had no answer. Then I wrote a letter. I said, okay, at least you can publish my letter. So I wrote a letter in Times of India, and I said that how is it that nobody talks about this event which has shaken the country completely and has created so many problems. And I got a few responses. One response was the feeling of guilt. That it is such a guilty thing that nobody wants to talk about it. And the other is, of course, the political lines are divided. Nobody wants to talk about it. But I must congratulate this group, particularly Gunita, whom I met in 2011 here in Fremont, because my son lives there, though I live in Baroda. So, I must congratulate this group, that they have created this, and they are the right people, because they can be neutral. They can afford to be neutral. They don't have to take side, this side or that side. So, I would urge all of you to help them as much as you can. They need donations very badly, because, you see, the person that I hired for taking interviews, 15, this young boy had a job of engineer. I think he was making 36,000, 38,000 rupees a month. When he heard about our, when he read the advertisement, he came to me, he says, I want to do this. I said, do you know how much you're going to get? You're going to get 15,000 rupees. Are you prepared? And you will have to produce at least one story a day. I must say, this young engineer resigned his job, joined this group, only for the sake of collecting our stories. Because this is a dying generation. These voices will stop completely. Some of them will stop. So I would urge you to donate as much so that you can at least, and I would say that you should sponsor at least one person there so he can collect more stories. This boy has collected something like 60 stories in about 6 months. So thank you very much, and I appreciate all this young group and urge you to help. Thank you.
you so much, Dr. Juneja. That was a very moving story, and I really appreciate you talking about Kanad Chatterjee and Gujarat. That's the story scholar that Dr. Juneja found for the archive. Once again, the donation box is over there. There are also donation envelopes under everybody's chairs. Who's sitting in this section? If you're sitting on the side, Chris, do you mind maybe grabbing a few envelopes and distributing them? Thank you so much. I would now like to introduce Elaine Jones, the Communications and Social Media Coordinator for the archive. She'll be speaking about what it's like to collect stories, what it means to collect stories on the ground. We are running a few minutes late, so thank you so much for your patience as we continue and approach the end of the program.
My name's Elaine Jones, and I've been volunteering with the archive since January 2013. So far, as a citizen historian, I've collected, or I've recorded and heard the stories of 7 people who experienced partition. The first time I ever heard about partition was in a college course on the history of South Asia. And the first thought I had was, why hadn't I heard of this sooner? Given its massive scale and the great changes it affected, I thought that partition should be taught alongside the Holocaust or Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And typically in American school curriculum, that's in like 7th grade. But I was 22, and that was the first time I heard of it. Partition struck me as a complex event. There seemed to be no single group that was a perpetrator. The line was drawn very arbitrarily and quickly, and neighbor seemed to turn against neighbor just as arbitrarily. There were a lot of questions I had. So when I came across the 1947 Partition Archive, I was inspired and compelled, and I felt like I had to be a part. I felt like I was answering some of these questions. So far, I've recorded the stories of 7 individuals, and each experience has been humbling and eye-opening. Everyone's story is different, and what I come away from it learning is that everyone was affected by partition. Every economic group, every religious group, everyone was affected in some way. What really stands out to me is the resilience of families and individuals, many of whom began a new life in a new place from nearly nothing. Hearing these stories makes partition feel more concrete in my mind. I really enjoy hearing about people's childhoods, what their life was like before partition, who were their friends, and how did the people in their community get along. Another thing I've learned is that even though the violence is the focus when partition is discussed, I've also found that for every instance of violence, there is one of compassion and coming together, and I was really affected by that. These stories can tell us so much. I look forward to when we make these public so that future generations can learn from them. It's future decision makers that are going to learn from these stories and hopefully make better decisions than our past leaders. I feel honored to have been given a glimpse into these people's lives who I've met. And I intend to record many more stories. Thank you.